estate agent, one of the most common questions is building right for me? We show people homes every day, and sometimes when you can't find exactly what you're looking for, it just seems logical that you're gonna say, why don't I just build what I want? Which is great. But if you've never been through that process before, there's a lot of questions that are unanswered that you might not know going into it until you're really in the middle of it. So I'm sitting here with Kelsey, who's decided to build her first home with her husband. So we've decided to document that process so that people can really get a great insight on what that looks like and get a lot of questions answered maybe ahead of time to see if this is the right fit for you. So Kelsey, why did you and your husband decide to build a home?
I think the idea of building was something we always wanted to do, but maybe never thought we could afford to build.
Sure.
It definitely gets very pricey as you get farther into the process. So we always wanted, I think, we lived in a one level, so we definitely wanted a one level, and that's kind of hard to find in this area too. So I'm kind of always like the home design and decor, so I feel like that was kind of my driving force on why I wanted to build, to design it, to make it how I wanted it, and to get to pick out everything. So that was kind of how we started. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of things that you don't think of when you go into it. I guess in my head, I always thought, oh, getting the land was going to be the most difficult part, or that. But, and I always heard this number like $100 a square foot. And that kind of just always was in the back of my mind, and learned very quickly that's not really the case.
Nope.
And all the things that you don't think of, when you're meeting with your builder and your appliances included, you kind of get like an itemized sheet from them. So definitely, I think research, because I too think some people do jump into it and then don't realize the cost up front, and then you're kind of like, well, I'm without a home. I sold my home. Now I'm like at plan B, and this isn't going to work out. So you don't want to be hit with all of those. And I think, my husband definitely researched it very thoroughly to make sure that we were going to be able to afford it and to get what we wanted. You don't want to just build and, I feel like, build mediocre.
Sure.
You want to be able to build and get what you want.
Well, and I want to say, I think that's something that you and your husband were definitely super prepared. And he did definitely, you've both done your research, but in different ways. I think you really researched the design and the aesthetics of what you want, and he was very big on the numbers and very smart about everything. And you guys knew that if you were going to sell your home, you needed to get X amount out of your home so that you could make that building process work. So you definitely were very methodical in your process and very smart from the very beginning. And not that other people aren't, but I think a lot of people just don't realize. And they just, like you said, they just jump into it. And I'm just going to build a house, and I can just build what I want. You can, but for most people, it's going to cost more to build regardless than buy existing and remodel or whatever that is. And I think there's so many, which you're probably already finding or already found, there's so many hidden costs that go into building that you do not think about. For me personally, I could think of landscaping and your utilities and all of those things that kind of the infrastructure that go into that before you even get into the building of the house. So you guys are still kind of early. A lot of the background work has already been done. You've gone through your planning process. You've been meeting with your builder. You have your plans. You've bought your lot. So kind of bring us up to speed on what you guys have accomplished so far.
I think the thing first to kind of tell everyone, we actually had contacted a builder before we even listed the house. And I think that was very wise because I think too, we were able to see is this even going to be, why sell your house and be homeless if you're not even gonna be able to get what you want or do it. And obviously we are living with my parents, so during the build. So, kind of have to have a backup plan, I think too, in my head, I'm like, we're gonna get a rental house. We're just gonna rent it while we build. And then you're looking at, because basically once you, with the loan with your bank, you're starting to they start taking draws to start paying for things. Well, they're going to start giving you a payment. So you start paying on that kind of stuff. And, in my head, I'm like, how do people do it if they don't live with family during this process? Because I feel like kind of the perk was to save some money, but then you're also spending quite a bit even while you aren't even in the home yet. So.
Right. And so that's something that people might not think about is, whether you sell your home first or not, which most people will want to do. They want to sell their home so they have that chunk of money to put towards, a loan to build a home. But like you said, you're still going to automatically start paying on that. And then if you don't have somebody to live with to save that money, you're going to also be needing to pay for a rental of some sort.
Right.
So there's those hidden costs that you might not think about.
In our builder too, I think that's I think contractors especially in this time are extremely busy. And so, I had emailed him, and then within 24 hours, I already had the meeting set up with him. So, we told him straight off the bat, we hadn't sold our house. This is kind of what we were looking at. Do you think this is even possible with our budget? Like, what are we going to have to get to be able to build? And he was very forthcoming with all that info. I am a big Pinterest person, so everything I showed him right off the bat, which I thought was like our dream home, couldn't even be fit on the lot. So that's something you kind of need to work on too. I think, where are you going to build?
Yeah.
And I think everyone too, land is extremely difficult to find, I feel like right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're kind of limited on your spacing. So if you want to live in the country, that's great, but where are you going to find that acreage?
Mm-hmm.
And, our head, we were like, if we ever have to resell, we kind of want to be in a good neighborhood. That way we can resell if we ever would need to in the future. So he was very open, I think, on that. And he kind of worked on our plan. So we kind of just gave him, I think, the basics of, we want this many bedrooms, this many bathrooms. I want an open concept. And so we were able to kind of work with him on that. And he was able to draw up different things too. We had to tweak a couple things, but basically you kind of get that off the internet, and then he kind of works it through. The other thing too, and our banker suggested this, and I would tell this to everyone too, is to find homes that builder has done in the area. With someone being local too, I felt like, I guess, safer, if that makes sense. Maybe, he's going to always be on site. He's going to be around here. I'm not going to wait on somebody from Columbus or, a bigger city to come down and do this work. And he has his own staff, which I really liked because, I've heard a lot of horror stories where they have, they contract most of this stuff out, and then you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
And it's always kind of a hold up. Like, I had to wait on this guy to come before this guy can come. And so I liked that idea. And my husband was the same way. We kind of wanted someone that we knew we could rely on. So we kind of found the neighborhood that we wanted. And then we went and looked at a couple homes that he has already built. And we're very pleased with the finishings and things like that too, that were in these homes. And usually at the end of a build, I feel like when I talk to people, they're like completely done with their builder and they would never, use him again. And every person that we talk to in a heartbeat would build with him again, which I'm like, that's something to be told, because usually you're just kind of stressed and, you've been delayed and you're done. But at that point, so that was kind of it. I think you definitely need to figure out where you want to be location wise. And that's another cost that I think, too, people don't realize. Like, in my head, I'm like, we're not putting in a whole septic system because we're in town, so we're going to just, tap into those things. But even the budget that we allowed was $2,000 over. So I'm like, you got to think about that, too. Like, so definitely have, I think, some money set aside just for when things come up that you don't really realize. So we did that, land and things like that. Another thing, too, was with our lot, there was no land prep. So even simplest things as moving dirt can cost a lot of money, and you don't think about that because the two lots that I picked first, I'm like, they look flat to me, but they have to bring in so much dirt and that kind of thing. And then you also need to look at too, probably the best lot in that area too had tons of water issues just because of the drainage of the way the back flew. So I think that's something too you have to really kind of weigh, and I don't have the eyes obviously for that. So you definitely need to talk to your builder about what's doable with this spot that you want to do. Yeah,
and you brought up a lot of great points. So you guys definitely chose a local, smaller builder. It's not, and not the alternative is bad, but you chose to go local and small, custom builder, basically, not a big box company.
Right.
So that you could have those hands-on conversations probably almost daily. And you guys also chose a neighborhood that he had built in before. So he was familiar with the area, with the lots, which is great because you pointed out that he already knew some of them would have water issues. You guys also knew that you want a certain style of a home, and therefore he could tell you what lots were going to be good for that style home or not. So I think from the very beginning, based on the neighborhood that you guys chose, he was already familiar with that neighborhood. He's obviously a very reputable builder. You checked out his references. And so it seems like you developed, some pretty good working relationships right off the bat, and kind of building that trust too, probably, I think is important. So, moving forward, kind of fast forwarding a bit, you guys picked your lot, and you purchased your lot separately. So that's something that I don't know if people factor that in or not. You talk about price per square foot, but talk about where you're going to build that, what land that is going to be on, and how much is that land going to cost. Is that going to be included with your builder, or are you going to purchase that separately? So you've bought your lot, you've closed on a construction loan, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And picked out your plans, and now kind of where are you now?
So now we're basically we have a giant hole. We are starting to dig the basement this week. So the basement will be, it takes 3 to 4 days to get the basement dug. So we opted to do a walkout basement. That, again, too, if that's something that you're interested in. I grew up with a basement, but I guess I was always like the basement was dark and dungeon-like, and I never really cared if I had a basement, but never seen, or, I guess been to a walkout basement. So we went and toured a home that he did with a walkout. And really made a huge difference for us as far as your square footage and the natural light that you get with the walkout. So, again, too, that's something that only like 2 lots in that neighborhood could be utilized for. So that's going to alter your plans a little bit. So right now we're basically, he's on site to dig out the basement, and then we'll start from there. But they have to go, like a couple weeks ago we started just pay the sewer tap and the electric, because they have to have electric just to work on that site. So we went and set all that up ourselves, and then basically they dug that out, and then they'll start the basement. But we've also worked with our cabinet person too, as far as we picked out the cabinets and the flooring and the countertops. I kind of knew a little bit going in, I guess, what I wanted, so that wasn't that difficult. But you are seeing like these tiny little squares, and you're like, oh, is this gonna look okay? But definitely, we haven't really, I guess, completely finalized that, but we have in the ballpark of what we want, just to kind of get the price figured out, what everything will cost. And then your builder usually gives you an allowance to spend on those certain things. Another thing too, we didn't do probably as good a job as we should have on this, is kind of go in price. My probably taste is maybe a little different than what the allowance allows, and that's what I don't think you realize too. You think that is going to be enough to cover everything, and maybe it's not. So you kind of need to go to and price, I guess, what you like, and to see if that's even in the ballpark as well, and figure out where you could be, if you have to cut, where's the best way to cut. But in the end, you want to get what you want. So I guess we're also like, do you just bite the bullet and pay it all and then worry about it later? So,
and I think those are some hard decisions, because in the midst of it, it's all adding up so quickly, and it's very overwhelming, and it can feel like a lot. But then you have to kind of look ahead and say, hopefully this is going to be,
and it's an investment,
a long time, to enjoy this home. And, do you pay a little bit more now, to enjoy something more long-term without having regrets? That's something you kind of have to weigh at that time. And, and there's going to be probably times where, you really do have to decide, and you can't afford to take that next step up, and kind of make that compromise. But definitely being more thoughtful in those detailed decisions to kind of think about if you'll be happier long term.
Right. And that's definitely the biggest thing. And I think so many times, like, in my head, I just thought we need to get the land and, $100 a square foot, we'll get what we want. And it's not that. But no one told me, really.
Well, and you guys definitely set a budget, and knowing your husband, I know you're probably sticking to that as much as possible. But just to reconfirm, when you initially months ago said, I want to build a house, it's definitely turned into more costly than you ever thought it would, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, and I'm like, I would never have thought the difference of this, but like, we were able to purchase the land separately. We closed on the contract, so that was nice. And so we had, this extra money we were going to use for the down payment. And if you put it down now, our interest rate would be higher. But if we can put it down like right after the close, or bring it to the close at the end of the build, our interest rate will go down significantly. So you don't think about that, but you got to think in 20 to 30 years, that money would add up very quickly. So but I guess I never thought that too. I'm like, well, if we have it, why don't we just throw it down there now and be done with it? And it was like, well, they like it, like if you bring it to the close. So I think definitely use a realtor and use those people and really research.
Yeah, I think a real estate agent, a trusted lender,
right?
And obviously a trusted builder. And I think you guys also, like you said, you did your homework and kind of checking around and talking to people that had built specifically with this builder. I think it's just, there's a lot that goes into the behind the scenes and the prep work leading up to breaking ground. And I don't want to discourage, my goal isn't to say it's too expensive to build a home. It's just that there's a lot more to think about than most people realize. And I've had clients in the past that have gotten kind of in the midst of, much further along than you, and then kind of had to pull back because it's more than they thought. So you never want that to happen either. So I think it's definitely doing your homework and kind of just budgeting accordingly, and probably at the end of the day, always, probably adding a percentage for, going over on some things too. So.
And I think too, we never got a second opinion on a builder. I really, I felt very comfortable with him and didn't think I needed to do a second visit with anybody or anything like that. But we did do the loan. We had a friend that we had used for our first home, and so automatically went back to him, and he met with us a couple of times. But the interest rate that he could lock us in was higher than anyone locally, and he wasn't offended by any means. So I feel like you don't want to think like, oh, I'm hurting someone's feelings, but I guess in my head with these banks, I thought they could price match. Mm-hmm. If they can give us 4%, then I can give you 4%. That's not the case either. So right. I think too, and that's such a far away thing. I think you think about the interest rate because right now you're just in this big process of trying to build, and that kind of just seems out of sight, out of mind. But you got to think too, long term, how much you would really be saving. So it is wise to even not only do your research on your builder, but also your loan and things like that.
Sure.
And I think too, working with a realtor too, even as you're building, helps because you kind of want to see what people are wanting. We wanted the 1 story, but is that going to sell better than a 2 story? So I think you use your realtor to, as far as kind of guiding a little bit into your build, just to know if you do ever have to resell.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I mean, you might be there longer than you think, or that might be your forever home. You just never know. But I think most people go into their build thinking, this is my forever home. But I think it's very wise to prepare for if something ever happens, you want to be able to sell that home. I don't think you want to make it too customized, right. Where it could become unsellable or, not hold as much value because you tailored it so much to your taste. I think it's very important to be aware of, keeping it sellable in the future if anything were to ever happen. And I know that you've definitely done that as well, as far as down to where the neighborhood that you picked and the floor plan and your finishes and things like that. So, as much as people want it to be their forever home, I think you should always be aware of, if the unforeseen happens, that you're going to be able to sell that easily. So,
yeah. And I think too, kind of budget where you want to sink your money into. We did a lot higher end cabinets in the kitchen area. Obviously, we went cheaper in the laundry room. So there are ways you can cut. And I think too, you kind of think, okay, I'm probably not going to redo the kitchen for a while, mm-hmm. So I need to kind of we sunk more of the money into that part of the house.
What's the most important part of the home to you?
Right.
It's the kitchen and probably that open living area, which is probably for most people, probably maybe even your master bath, things like that. So those are, the kitchen and the baths are usually the biggest areas for most people. And like you said, kind of really deciding where you want to focus the quality in your money, I think is probably definitely an important thing to think about too. So you guys have broken ground, right? Mm-hmm. Where are they in the process now?
So the next thing, obviously, will be get the basement put in, and then we'll go from there.
What did they budget for, or what's the estimated time frame to finish the build?
We're at about 6 months. So I'm hoping we'll be in by Thanksgiving. And that's it, too. I think I'm trying not to, focus on that month because I think, obviously weather permitting is going to be the biggest factor if they can get the work done.
Sure.
But you definitely want to see an end in sight. So, I kind of threw out, can I pass out candy for trick or treat? And he was like, of course, of 2020. So I think I think people seem to get kind of antsy definitely towards the end, and you want it to be in the house. But so hopefully we'll be in, I keep thinking Thanksgiving time. So we'll see.
Well, I'm really excited to follow you through this process, and I want to share with people what this process looks like. And obviously, it's going to be different for everybody, regardless of what kind of home you're building, what builder you choose. But hopefully this will give people just more of a general insight on the process, things to think about, things you might not have thought about as we follow you along the way. And obviously excited to see the finished product in your beautiful home. But again, just providing more people or providing an insight on what that looks like so that people are better prepared if they choose to make that decision.